Hello friends! In today's video I'm going to be showing you how I made this super cute Valentine's Day gnome tumbler. I'm using this 25-ounce stemless wine glass from MakerFlo for this cup. So I've got this base painted white and I'm going to take a pencil and kind of sketch out what I want. I'm using this little guy as my inspiration. So he doesn't have any eyes, but he's got a fluffy beard and cute nose and his little hat. So I want his nose to be the focal point, so that's going to be in the middle here. It's going to be kind of big. Can you see that on camera? I hope you can. So there's where his nose is going to be. And so his hat is going to come down this way. And this is just a rough sketch, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But we just want to get an idea. I'm going to be using this DAS or DAS modeling clay. It's just an air hardening clay that I got on Amazon. We're going to start with the nose for the gnome, and I'm just going to take a little bit and mold it into a ball, kind of like if you're making a meatball. I'm going to use my thumb to just smooth out any rough spots or any kind of holes or anything in it. We really want this to be as smooth as possible. And I'm also going to kind of flatten out one side of the nose so it's easier to adhere to the tumbler when we do glue it on. I'm going to mold his hat directly onto the cup. So I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to steady it using whatever I have. Usually it's a squeegee or some sanding blocks. And I'm going to take that clay. I don't have too much because we are going to end up just spreading it around. So just take a little bit and mold it into kind of like a snake shape. And what we're going to do is place it around the bottom of his hat, like where it will be hitting his nose. Work it all the way around to the back of the tumbler so it's fully wrapped. And then we will work our way around, kind of rounding out the edges and smoothing that clay upwards so the entire top portion of the cup is covered in clay. Okay, just want to apologize really quickly for the cup being like halfway out of frame for this entire time. Hopefully you can see enough of what I'm doing, but sorry, I don't know what I was doing. I let the clay harden for probably about 2 days before I was able to continue, but I think 24 hours is plenty. Once the clay is totally dry, we're ready to attach the nose. I'm using this Gorilla Glue, just regular super glue, and I'm going to put a little bit on the back of the nose and attach it to the tumbler. And you just want to make sure that it is really in place, everything is dry and secure before we move on to the next step. Now that our nose is attached, we're ready to sand and smooth out the surface before we paint and glitter everything. So I'm taking a 220 grit sanding block, so this is really fine. It's not aggressive sanding or anything. We're just trying to smooth out any bumps and make sure that our surface is going to be easy to paint. So when I started painting, I thought that I would just paint it and then add the adhesive over. So I'm gonna do a coat of pink paint on his little body, but I'm gonna go back later and add the adhesive into the paint. So you don't have to do a base coat and then another coat, but that's what you'll see me do in this video. So when I first started to paint the gnome's hat, I was using a pretty thick Arteza acrylic paint, and it wasn't spreading how I wanted it to. It just wasn't liquidy enough. So I painted a little bit of it, and then I decided to just mix red and white together, make my own pink that kind of matches this, and go from there. So that white that I'm mixing in is Tack It, the adhesive. So I'm taking probably about equal parts just until I think it's enough. And I'm gonna apply it to the hat and then glitter as I paint because we have the adhesive in there that dries really quickly. So I'm gonna paint a portion, glitter, and then finish out the hat that way. Once the hat is all complete, we're going to move on to his nose. I'm just using a kind of tan, skin-toned acrylic paint. I'm adding the tiniest amount of Tack It into the paint, mixing that together, and then we're going to use Monica 7 from Peachy Olive Glitters to glitter his nose. It's kind of like an iridescent glitter. I don't have anything that's kind of tan colored, but I still wanted his nose to sparkle, so any kind of iridescent-y, opal-y-ish glitter you have is totally fine. For his beard, I'm just using regular white acrylic paint, mixing the Tack It in, and using Flurries from Peachy Olive Glitters. Flurries is a matte white glitter, but it's really full coverage and adds a nice touch to the texture of his beard. So now we're going back to the gnome's body. I've got some very light pink acrylic paint and I've mixed in some Tack It. So we're going to paint his whole body, and then I'm going to be using Pinky Promise from Peachy Olive Glitters to glitter his outfit. Once he's all glittered, I'm going to let him sit for probably a day or two to make sure everything is dry, and then I'm going to add a coat of polyacrylic to each section one by one to really seal the glitters in before we go in with epoxy. After the polyacrylic is dry, we're ready for epoxy. I am applying the epoxy section by section. I'm going to put it on his body first, and then his beard, and then his nose, and finish up with the hat. Just to be really safe, I don't want those glitters to move. I want all of the lines to stay crisp and clean, so I'm epoxying section by section. I let that first coat of epoxy cure for about 4 to 6 hours, and then I went in with a second coat, and I let that coat cure for just about 12 before I went in with my second round of sanding. And this time I wanted to make sure that all of the epoxy was smooth, the glitter was smooth underneath, and that everything was perfect before we applied our final coats. I did end up adding a couple little hearts to the bottom of his beard just to make him a little bit more Valentine's Day themed. That's totally optional. You could add a name to the back. Of course, you can customize this however you want, but I wanted to make him just a little bit more cutesy. So here I am applying the final coat of epoxy. I ended up just doing one final coat and it was totally fine. With all of the clay, this guy is heavy, so I wanted to use as little epoxy as possible with still getting a good finish. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be shipping these. They are hefty. Once that final coat of epoxy was cured, we were all done. I think this little guy turned out so cute, and it was actually way easier than I thought, so hopefully you will give this a try, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and it helped you. If it did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We come out with new videos every week, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!